So protection magic, actually that's what I specialise in, that's what I really focus on. So I could go on and on and on about it, but I won't. Basically I just want to touch on the different kinds of protection magic. There's a lot more than what we think, and again I say this a lot, but just in case you haven't watched the other videos, if it's something that's modernised paganism, you're only looking at it through most times through a very narrow field of vision. You don't see all this other stuff out there that exists. Unfortunately, the more that we get into this really specific and higher level stuff, is going to be even more of a chance that I cannot tell anyone how to do something, because I simply don't want it to fall into the wrong hands. It would be too easy if I said how to do it. People could figure it out eventually, perhaps, and it's just not worth adding to an already existing problem where people are taught that ought not to be taught, people with ill intent. So I can't, a lot of this stuff I can't say how to do it, but I will just give you the, these are the different kinds of things that you can do, and just give you kind of the knowledge of it. So the very first kind of protection is really, it's the most basic. It's even the modern pagans use it. It's any kind of shielding or warding. I just call it shield, because it's not any really form of war magic. It's not an offensive, it's just a defensive type thing, and it's just a very passive, if that, defensive type thing. I do classify war magic as a type of protection magic. I'll get to that later. Right now we're just on shielding. So the most important time to have a shield, in my opinion, is all the time. But a lot of people say you only really need it when you're doing magic, and I just, in my life that I've lived, and going through hell growing up and having post-traumatic stress from abuse, and then realizing what the world really was, and just how many people out there of ill intent there are. It's not, to me, it's not outlandish to think you should just have one all the time. You should have just a shield. And what bad can it do you? It can't do you any harm to have a shield. I mean, it's just a shield. So basically, it'll prevent, if you have it all the time, it'll prevent something when your guard's down. It'll prevent, that. But the trick is that your shield is only as strong as the belief in it, and pretty much with all magic. And so if you only believe that it protects against, just this little area of your life, then that's going to be the only thing, even if you try to set it up for everything. If you only believe it only does this, then that's only, the intent is very important there, and the belief is very important there. And just in general, that intent has to be pretty specific, or should I say non-specific. What I'm trying to say is that whatever the intent is, you have to intend to include stuff that you may not think about including otherwise. It's best to just say protect against, on a more general scale, than to just set up 15 different shields for 15 different issues. So in my opinion, if you're not going to do it all the time, at least do it when you're doing any kind of magic, especially magic where you're going into other realms like the spirit realm, because there's a lot of different spirits that can travel into, wherever you're doing the work, the magic, that you don't want them to come in. That you've got a lot of malice and ill intent with a lot of those spirits, and if you don't set up protection to only let the ones in that you're actually trying to summon or actually trying to work with, then you'll have something else tag along, and it's you know, messes up everything else. So at least for that kind of thing, I honestly, if you let anyone do any kind of healing work or even protection work on you, you need to set up protection against, even if you trust them, you need to set up protection against it. Learn the hard way on that one. Learn the hard way before I even knew anything, before I even became a pagan, before I even started learning about paganism. I was an easy target because I had no idea how to protect myself. So I'm saying this now so that hopefully, you know, anyone who wants the cleansing on their house, or anyone who wants to go and, you know, have some kind of past life regression, or whatever it is that you're going to talk to a dead loved one, whatever it is, just be careful and set up protection before you go. There is a specific way that it needs to be done, and if it's not done in this way, it will fail. That being said, there's those specific ways. It's not so specific that it's just like one's really only one way to do this, but there is if you're doing it in a ritual / spell form, you'll have to actually say and do certain things, which again I cannot say because I don't want this to fall into the wrong hands. But you know, just know that you don't have to necessarily go by one specific book, by one specific whatever. It's not that like that. As long as you've got guides and they're guiding you on that path and telling you, and as long as you know for sure they're actually guides and not a ill-intent spirit which you think is a guide, but an actual guide that are guiding you to do this, you know, then you don't really need to look at a book necessarily, because you'll be guided to do the right thing, and you'll just know how to do the ritual by being guided. So if you really listen to your guides, you'll learn it anyway. But yeah, and then if it's something that's not an actual spell, that it can happen that way too, but you'll need certain magic for it. You'll need certain protection magic for it if it's not going to be a spell. So let's see what else. Okay, so that is basically, I think, all that on the shielding, but there's all different kinds of, like I said, protection magic. We actually talked about the kind of magic where it's not a shield, but it's more so a dagger or an arrow, and we talked about that towards the end of the healing magic, where I said, you know, if someone just pained you, and the healing is the part where you extract, where you cleanse, where you extract that pain, and the protection is the part where you take that pain, you just extract it, and like an arrow, you throw it back at whoever gave it to you. Well, like I said, that's going to go somewhere. When you extract it, if you just let it loose, it's going to go somewhere. And if you don't have a plan for it, even if you don't intend for it to hurt something innocent, it's going to eventually, that arrow, if you have no control, no direction of where that arrow is going, it's eventually going to hit something innocent, 9 times out of 10. So you have to pick and choose where that goes. And if it's, like I said, protection magic, then we're assuming that you're doing protection magic because there is a threat, right? So that arrow is going right to the threat. That's where it's going. You have to have sacred permission though to be able to do something like that. And again, that's why I can't just say this to let anyone do, you know how to do this, because can you imagine in the wrong hands what that kind of magic could be able to do? In the wrong light. It's only meant to be for protection purposes. It's not meant to be anything else, not because you selfishly just want to do it just for your own selfish benefit. That's not how this works. You get an immense threefold, which is a very painful punishment by the universe if you just decide that you're going to just go ahead and do something anyway that you did not have the permission to do. First, you have to know for sure that it is a real serious threat. I mean, a serious to either your health or your life or someone else you're trying to protect, to even possibly be given sacred permission. And then you still have to ask. You still have to ask the universe if you're meant to be able to do that. So anyway, it's an actual physical thing. You're giving back whatever they did to you, you give it right back. In a similar light, you can actually curse somebody. Everybody knows what I'm about to say with this, where maybe it's not, you know, necessarily creating any kind of pain for them, maybe, but not necessarily. It could just be bad luck. It could just be more of an emotional pain level where, you know, they have to learn a lesson. If they don't learn that lesson, then it keeps happening. That bad luck keeps happening to them over and over. It's basically, you know, give what you get type lesson to to those people. And then there's the actual really reserved for life or death type war magic that is so powerful that it can actually hex somebody to the point where it can kill them. And you don't want to do that to anyone unless they're a threat, a real living life or death threat, and especially, you know, that they're evil. You know, that you don't want to do this to somebody, perhaps, you know, that you think is a threat and you think is evil, but actually deep down is not. You have to be able to tell for sure that that person really is evil and they really are out there to try and hurt you immensely or even kill you. I mean, that is what it's saved for. That is what it has to be saved for. Because if you do it for anything else, then you're the evil one. And, you know, it's, like I said, if it does work, it may work once, or it may work twice, temporarily. Eventually your magic's going to be weak, it's going to fall apart, and eventually you are going to fall apart too because of the threefold. Threefold is literal pain. Any pain that you give someone else, it's the same pain but 3 times worse and 3 times longer. And you cannot do anything to avoid that threefold. That's just kind of what the universe does. You don't have the power to say when it will happen, how long it will happen, or what it will be. You don't get to decide that, and there's nothing you can do to bend and break the rules. It's the laws of the universe. You can't break those. So the universe decides that, and you can't just do something good and nice and try to you know, cancel it out. That doesn't work either. You still get that punishment, and each time you do something new, you get something else added on to it. So I would highly recommend not, you know, using war magic unless you really need it. I look at war magic the same way I look at a lethal weapon, a physical lethal weapon, because it literally can be. It can be lethal. It can kill people. And if it doesn't kill them, it'll make them bedridden for the rest of their life. You know, it's that kind of magic. You don't just play around with it when you feel like it. Usually, I'd say the most common way is through some kind of hex, a spell or something, but that's not the only way to go about this. You know, you can work with protectors, or if you are a protector, if you actually are, some of us actually are either healers or protectors. So if you have that protection magic already within you, then a lot of times all it takes, you don't even have to do a spell, you don't even have to work with anything, all it takes is releasing your own magic like a loaded gun, you know, just releasing it onto them with the intent of what you're doing. There's a lot of healing and protection tools that you can use, and I will get into that in a separate video. Actually, I'm thinking it might actually be the next video, but I'm not sure. So we talk about hoods and flutes and drums and all that kind of good stuff, so we'll do that in the next video.